our thoughts on the Final Four. I guess that's the wrong sport, right? Road to the Super Bowl and everything that's happened with the NFFC, the high stakes contest that RotoWire and Chris Liss have played in for decades at this point, and their latest controversy, or the only controversy, and we'll get into all of that. And if you don't know what we're talking about, we'll explain it in a moment. This is a collaboration podcast with Real Man Sports and RotoWire. I'm Alan Seslowsky along with Chris Liss. Liss, let me ask you, do you want to start by talking about conference championship stuff, or would you prefer to go into the NFFC high-stakes contest scandal?
Yeah, let's talk about the NFFC because that's sort of a big deal in the industry, and even more for me because that's the fantasy that I play. I mean, that's what I do.
All right. So I want you to start to explain what's going on because most people that watch this won't even have a baseline of what the NFFC is. So in like simplest terms, explain what it is and what the controversy is before you give your thoughts.
Yeah, so the NFFC is National Fantasy Football Championships. They also have the NFBC baseball. NFC is the whole National Fantasy Championships is sort of the company, and it's Sports Hub. They have like a bunch of corporate partners, whatever, but it's the NFFC, NFBC. And RotoWire has partnerships with them for a long time. I still do stuff with them. They give me Beat Chris Liss leagues. I pay for the big high stakes ones myself, but I get comp these smaller ones and I, bring in business for them and I like it and I win money sometimes. And I know you've done a bunch of those too, Alan. And the guy who kind of runs the whole thing is Greg Ambrosius. And we've been partners with him for a long time. Like back before he even did it, he was the guy who was running the magazine distribution for us and helping put together our football and baseball magazines back in like 2001. So we know them well. We've done business with them for a long time, and they're friends of ours, personal friends of ours. So what happened was there's a contest going on right now, which is a playoff contest, and you and I have talked about this in the last couple podcasts. But you pick players and blah blah blah. We'll get into all the rules, but it turned out that somebody with inside help was getting to set his lineups for this contest after the games had begun. And a couple of guys on a podcast, and I wish I could give them credit.
I do. It's Pete Overzet, Pat Corrine, and Gretsch. They're the Chasing Ship podcast.
Chasing Ship podcast. I on my Real Man Sports post, I gave them credit, but I couldn't remember it. So
I'll also link their podcast in our video description so they can.
Okay, so I didn't watch the whole thing, but I watched the beginning of it, and basically good for you. And they just sort of were so into the contest that they had, looked at so many different rosters and they started to notice that like something was amiss, and they figured out that somebody had changed the roster after lock. And of course you can't do that. I actually weirdly, so yesterday I DM'd Derek to ask if we could set up a Beat Chris Liss 1 for a week from Wednesday.
Hold on 1 second. So Derek is the person who is presumably at the center of this controversy on the NFFC side.
So, yeah, we're gonna get to that. So I DM Derek because he's the guy I always go to like help me set up these contests. I know him; he's a friend of mine, and he's like, "Ask Tom," like and I'm like, "Oh, that's weird. Like, are they not going to do it for me this year? Like, what's going on?" I had no idea. So I emailed Greg and Tom, and they're like setting it up, but it was just like that was just a little off. And then this morning I woke up, saw, people talking about it on Twitter, saw the link to that podcast and was like, holy shit, there was some cheating going on in the contest. And then Derek's account has disappeared from Twitter. So I assumed, okay, so he was the guy involved on the inside doing this. And so if it's just this contest that this happened, obviously it's unfortunate and it, will get people to worry in the future. But this is a contest that really one team doesn't affect another because everybody can pick the same players. There's no like, it doesn't affect me if they're going to wipe out obviously the entries that cheated and then everyone will just get ranked as they would have been. And that wouldn't affect my picks or anything about my team. So that would be pretty clean and easy to remedy. The problem is, how long has this been going on? Are there other contests in the past? And so they're going to have to lean on him and get him to like say, okay, which ones, if any, did you affect? And, they're going to have to figure out the remedies for that and diagnose that. I don't envy that task. I will say I wrote a piece on this at realmansports.com. And this is a bit of a shill but I'll own it. I'm not an unbiased arbiter of this because I'm friends with Greg and we've been partners with them, and they do comp me some of these leagues every year. So I am not, I'm not the person to objectively say this, but you could take it with a grain of salt if you want. I'm just going to give you my 2 cents that Greg, as far as I know, and I know him pretty well, is just a rock solid guy and is probably extremely upset by this. And I trust them going forward to, make sure this, doesn't happen. And
Liss, did you read Greg's statement?
Yeah, I linked to it in my post.
Yep, I read. The statement, by the way, I'll also link in the video description here. So if people want to see it, read it, haven't seen it yet, they'll be able to do that.
Yeah. So I think he'll take care of it, and and they'll find remedies that make sense. And I trust them, and I'm still going to buy with my own money the main event entry this year, like I was planning to. But I'm sure he's hurting because his whole business is based on integrity and trust, and it's a big violation. And people are going to be, wondering like, wait, when I lost last year, was that because someone was cheating? And it's like Tim Donaghy, the whole thing. It's like as soon as you call one thing into question, you start to wonder. But again, I can't, I don't know what they're going to have to look into the past ones and see what happened. But I wouldn't vouch for that many people. But I happen to trust Greg a lot, and I think that that I can trust them going forward. But I would understand if people who don't know him, would feel a little more suspicious of it. But I'm pretty much like it's fine. It's not fine what happened, but it's not shaking me like my conviction. Like I'm going to play the baseball ones as usual.
Yeah, and the other thing they have to check out also is not because supposedly, and again, I only know what I'm reading right now, and who knows, whatever you're reading could be true, could be false. I'll take, and I feel the same way you do. I feel very convicted that Greg is probably heartbroken based on what we know about Greg and how much of a person of integrity he is. And if you like, I was talking to a couple guys that play high stakes NFFC, and they feel like a little quote betrayed. I said, imagine how Greg feels, right? If you feel betrayed and you already know you've been playing in the NFFC for 15 years and you know this is like a rogue dude that they trusted, imagine how they feel with their whole life's work, blood, sweat, and tears. So the other thing they're going to have to
but that's not their problem, right? So I mean, I'm not that sympathetic to that because I feel bad for Greg because I know Greg, but as a player, as a customer, Greg's feelings are not your problem, right? Like, it is definitely worse for Greg. But those guys, like, they are justifiably, kind of like, what's the deal here? I just happen to know Greg personally, so I trust him, and I think they're going to get to the bottom of it, and they're going to do it fairly. And I just feel like he's a person of integrity, but not everybody knows him as well as I do. And we worked with him for 20 years, and everything. There was no bullshit. There was no, when you do when you run a company for 20 years, and there's guys. And you're doing business with lots of different people. And we all talked, all of our partners at RotoWire talked about every deal that went bad, or some guy didn't pay, or some guy was giving us the straight arm every time we tried to get paid what we were owed, and Schuler's trying to collect. And, there was never any of that with Greg or his businesses. There was never any bullshit. There's never any attitude. It was win-win if we did a deal with them. So, it's just someone I know from a long time. And I just happen to have been on the inside of that. And, remember RotoWire in 2003 was a small nothing company that wasn't as connected as it is now. And now you'd be dumb to stiff RotoWire because word would get out fast that but in 2003, we were tiny and still the same kind of integrity. So again, I don't expect the players or the customers to care about Greg or to care about what I'm saying necessarily. I
disagree with you here. I totally disagree with you. I think no matter what you think, you still have a following that your followers have now narrowed down to a hardcore bunch that really trust in what you say.
Those 5 to 10 of them are hardcore.
Whatever you think, man. Whatever. I disagree with that number. I think that you have thousands of people that follow you, that trust you, and if you are someone that's standing on the pulpit vouching for someone's reputation, I do believe that has influence.
That's nice of you to say. I don't know. And I'm not, a perfect judge, so I could be wrong. But I personally would vouch not for that many people, but I would vouch for Greg. Like,
would you vouch for me? Would you vouch for me?
Yeah, I would vouch for you also.
What if I was caught like exposing myself in public or something?
Well, then you did the deed. If Greg was the one, cheating, then I wouldn't vouch for him. But the point is, I would vouch for Greg. There's not a lot of people I would vouch for. I wouldn't just like, and I almost feel slimy doing it because
No.
whenever there's a scandal, Claudine Gay plagiarizes, and you see all these nutless Harvard professors being like, she's an amazing person. She's blah, 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 blah. They'll immediately just vouch because it makes them look good. It makes them look loyal. It makes them look like whatever. They care about Harvard. They'll get promoted later. I don't give a shit. I'm not going to work anymore, as like that kind of job. I don't need a job from anybody or recommendation. It's more just personal. I just know the guy. So, but I'm not saying whatever, do your own research, do your own due diligence. Don't just trust me.
You did not just say do your own research.
Do your own research. Do your own research.
It's become a meme of itself. The other thing, I think that,
you see that airplane where like that dude noticed there were bolts missing and then like they stopped it and put the bolts in before it took off. You think do your own research is bad? How about inspect your own airplane? How about that's going on? Oh, I can't be bothered to do my own research. Well, now you got to be bothered to inspect your own airplane these days. So it's getting, the ask is only getting bigger now.
Yeah. And just to go back, so they'll have to look at this because this dude that got the Red Solo Cup screen name, the guy, I've talked to some other longtime NFFC players, and this guy has been like a staple in the NFFC for years. They're going to have to really go back and look at the logs and see what's happened. And you said you didn't watch the whole video put out by Ship Chasing. No, there's a long history that streams over a decade of Derek and this guy, that Red Solo Cup, talking on Twitter just casually. So there's a friendship, according to them, that goes back with screenshots they showed of a Twitter conversation, like kind of being, for lack of a better word, asshole buddies, like friends. Right. So the thing that they have to look at is like, they have to look at the fab logs.
Don't talk about their personal life, Alan.
So they have to look at the fab logs. How do they know that like Puka Nacua,
right? Like, bids, here's the bids. You want to go one more buck on this guy or whatever?
Right,
yeah,
right,
right. I mean, it's a real can of worms if there's like a lot of it because, and especially so this one's clean because you kick that guy out.
Mm-hmm.
This contest is everybody has access to every player. But as you said, like in Fab, that's a guy that somebody would have gotten. And let's say it's like a game changer. Mike Trout gets called up.
Oh,
I don't know if it goes that back.
Puka or Kyron Williams.
Right. Or just some game changer. And, you would have won, but you get the extra couple of bucks added to your bid. And then you don't win, you can't run back a whole season. I suggested in my piece, the simplest way to do it, right? But it would not be totally just, but I mean, they're limited what they can do. Is say that guy got paid out for second place in a year, right? So he got
Red Solo Cup.
Yeah, right. Third place then should be sent 700. He's awarded second place, gets 700. You just remove him, and then everyone else who should have cashes. But again, that's the easy way to do it, right? So maybe there's like 20 contests that they pay out extra to people that just missed, but should But like, yeah, what happens if you were the next highest bidder on Puka and and your team missed the playoffs by 20 points in NFL, say this year, you would have made the playoffs. And then during the playoffs, your also ran team would have gone bananas and you might've been in the overall, toward the end. There's no way to walk that back because you can't say, well, what if they were in the playoffs? That's the kind of thing that, would you have used the right players? How would you have set your lineup? I mean, it's impossible to go back and do that. So this is a real can of worms. And I think that, the way to do it is just pay out anyone who would have got paid, but for those teams, right? Like that's the no brainer, but that's sort of like the floor. And then, to sort of augment that, look at some, key fab guys that coulda, woulda, shoulda, the Nakuas or the Trouts, or if there's 20 of those, maybe award everybody. I mean, it's kind of where do you draw the line, but, give them sort of a bonus or some free entries or something to say, look, we can't go back in time and run it back, but we've noticed you probably forgot about this, but there, you were one of the people that got screwed by this. Here's a free entry, and just kind of do it that way. So you give out, 30 or 40 free entries, you pay out, 20 grand in prize money that, that guys get. And you just apologize and say, look, we're compensating people as best we can. And we fucked up. It's on our watch. And it's not going to happen again. And, we're sorry. I mean, that's the best you can do.
And again, we both said we're going to be paying for our entries in the NFFC. You're going to be doing baseball. We're still all in. We're putting our faith in the person we know that's run this. So that said, if they see I'm speculating now, a decline in revenue for this coming season, for next football season, you've had some law experience, you went to law school. Do they have a case for reputational lawsuit against the offender if they could prove anything?
Well, I don't know that Derek's got the assets to.
Well, I'm just saying, do they have a case?
Yeah, I mean, I think I think you would have a case, but I mean, you need deep pockets to say they lose $1 million net, in revenue and growth. You have to project growth every year. Obviously, the economy is a factor. Like, economy might be going to shit, and that will hurt them. So there's a whole bunch of variables. But if you could show that, this
actions of this
it was out of step with the rest of the industry, their growth or non-growth of the FFPC or the other competitors, and everybody else grew and relative to it, and you didn't, you might be able to show that this reputational harm, and if you got a bunch of feedback of customers, didn't re-up because they didn't like what happened, sure, I think you could. But again, I don't think like the rogue employee is going to be able to,
that's for another day, know.
Yeah.
So here's the other thing that I've seen. I saw someone, commenters are just disgusting people in general. That from people who comment on your Twitter. But one of the points that I keep seeing, and I'm sure if you're watching this video, you see that, the FFPC, DraftKings, they must be loving this because they're going to get market share. This is bad for all of the game providers. Do you fall on that line that now there's like a distrust? If you're a person that's not going to trust that this is legitimate, but again, we still have our faith in Greg. We've said that a couple times, but don't you? This is not like, we're going to get their market share if you're a competitor. This is chips away at the trust of the whole thing.
I mean, yes and no. I could see it both ways. There was a contest like 12 years ago, and I think Dalton was in like 6th overall, and it was expensive. It was like $1,500, and he was like in line for a big payday, and the dude just absconded. I think the dude's name was Dustin something, but he just absconded. He basically like collected the fees and then we're spending on marketing for like football, but never,
What was this? This was a different software?
It was a different company. It was a competitor to NFFC, like back in the day.
Do you remember the name of it? Just out of curiosity?
I can't, it might come to me, but it was, one of those, it's just whatever.
Fly by night. It was like,
No, I mean, it was big in the industry. Like people were excited to be part of it. I drafted a team. I just remember Dalton was like in line for
Was it the one where you drafted 3 quarterbacks?
I don't remember. Remember. It doesn't. It's not important. But the point is that it's funny. That Dalton got rugged. I mean, it's not funny. It's funny. But he was actually had a good team in that.
Right.
But the dude just Dustin something. I don't know if he had cancer afterward or something. But he just like, or he might have made that up. Just to get sympathy. But he just bailed. Okay. And and so Greg's, in contrast, was this sort of pristine operation where you got paid 2 days after the season ended. I mean, it was just like the money was, safely, non-tampered with. They ran a really tight ship. And so the implosion of that other one was kind of, it was kind of by contrast good for the NFFC, because it was like, okay, here's a real business. It's a legitimate business. And so there is some of that. I feel like, there is the potential for manipulation, obviously. In there was a DraftKings and FanDuel scandal where there was that guy who saw he was giving away, this is like 10 years ago.
It wasn't that long ago.
He was giving away the percentage owned numbers, to people.
I thought that wasn't the thing with like the guy that was like on The Bachelor or something. You remember that one too?
Maybe that was, but anyway, he was getting the percentage owned numbers, and that was obviously hugely important because you could get like really good pot odds on certain players. That was a scandal. It was so funny. The New York Times reported it, and it was like so bad. They botched everything. They were such idiots. I can't believe that paper.
You're surprised at that?
Well, no, now I'm not. But back then I was like, it's called the Gelman effect or something like that, where it was Michael Crichton made this up, where you read about something you happen to know about, like the DFS scandal, and you're like, this is ridiculous how off base they are on all of these points. They don't know what they're talking about, or DFS. You're like, Jesus, the New York Times sucks. And then you start reading about like the Middle East, and you're like, oh, absolutely. This must be totally true. You take the thing you don't know about as true in the newspaper, but the one thing you happen to know about, is totally botched. And then it's Gelman amnesia, I think it's called, where you just like forget that like the thing, the one test you could actually give them, they failed. And then you pretend like everything else is fine.
Right. You used the example where, Heather, your partner, says about the wine sideways and all the botches they make on the wine. And also, I mean, anyone that watches football, the movie Draft Day, there's so many things that would never happen there. So I mean,
Silver Linings Playbook, there was like, Robert Deere's a bookie, and the way they're talking, I'm like, this is so stupid. Like, what? Couldn't you just pay me like $50,000 to like consult for a minute on the script and just clean this up? This is terrible. It's not how they would talk. Right. And you're just like, it's so embarrassing, right? But like, if you know about something, and then you wonder about everything else that they're doing, how competent could they possibly be? But just back to the thing at hand. Look, here's the thing, right? Here's just the thing about human nature is if there's an incentive to cheat, and people think they can get away with it, they will cheat, right? People say, oh, is the 2020 election stolen? Well, it's not. You think they wouldn't if they could? Of course they would. The question is, did they have the opportunity? That's the only question. People may differ on whether the opportunity was there, but that is the only relevant question. Would they, if they thought they could get away with it? Oh, no, they would never do something like that. They'll insider trade stocks and make, steal millions from the capital markets, but they would draw the line at that no matter how much, it's important for them to win. So to me, that's always the line. And so the key is, do you have systems in place that make it basically impossible not to get caught, and the employees know that? And do you have enough of an incentive? And obviously the Gregs and the people running it have a way bigger incentive to have a successful business than to skim, a couple grand for themselves. That's a loser, right? That's a bad bet. But an individual employee, if he thought he can get away with it, is often going to try to get away with it. Obviously, you got to hire ethical people who wouldn't want to do that. But over time, an unethical person will slip in. And then it's a question is, are the systems robust enough? And they do have timestamps, which is why it got found out. And of course, anyone else there would be like, okay, like there's going to be even more robust checks and make it harder to do. But in general, if there is incentive to cheat, an opportunity, and people think they can get away with it, I assume there will be cheating. And the goal of these games is to convey the confidence, not so much, I know Greg's a good guy, but that, that the systems are in place that it's really hard for them to pull it off.
Yeah. And I'm very impressed, by the way, with Pete, Gretsch, and Pat, of the way they laid out the case too. So again, I'll refer to your law background. You said you didn't watch the whole thing, but they really did a great job of explaining it to even the layman in a 45-minute podcast with screenshots and the whole thing.
Good. That's good. I mean, that's a real skill these days to be able to do a video that actually is persuasive and shows step by step.
And the reason they said their motivation list was because they felt a burden of responsibility to their viewers who they've pushed this contest to.
Right.
And
that's how I feel too, because how many people I've put on the NFFC, like when I was doing the XM show, and just like all Jeff and I would talk about was NFFC, NFBC. We just stopped talking about other contests. It's like, oh, Tout Wars, that free league that like now they use OBP. I mocked Tout Wars, but it was a good league. But they're like, oh, let's use on base percentage, which nobody uses. And then it's a free league and it's AL only. And like, you have some hardcore old timers that like care. But the NFFC was the one that was like, okay, here's where the poker players and investors and Wall Street guys and everybody, bringing themselves to this event, and the ADP from that and the takeaways from the drafts and the strategies. This is where the action was. And this is where, the public would be like, oh, I can really take something and bring this to my home league. It's the same rules, similar rules. And you see people really for high stakes making moves and figuring it out in game theory and all the interesting discussions that flowed from that. And so, I am responsible for a lot of promotions. It's probably why, even though I have a relatively smaller audience now, they still give me comp things because they're like, oh, he helped grow this. Right. And so A, I'm biased toward them and I like them, but B, I also have kind of responsibility to say something and be like, there was cheating going on. And, we can't really sugarcoat, what happened.
Right. The only other experience I've had with something like this was in a home league. I actually screenshotted and caught someone who I always knew was a little shady. And when I say home league, it still was like a $200-$300 entry, which is not nothing.
Right.
And in a playoff game, I caught him swapping someone about 8 years ago or so. And I called him out in front of and he's made all the excuses. Oh, I just thought that. It was after the guy scored a touchdown.
Right.
And after that, I was looking for reasons to leave that league. And obviously that one, I think that league dissolved after that. That guy was always a real, let's say he had character issues, but that was beyond, and thank God I screenshotted, right?
Right. No, he'll just lie and gaslight you. I mean, there's, people feel entitled for whatever reason to do things. But it's messed up, and I feel bad for Greg. And I don't think the customers need to worry about him. That's his problem. And I'm sure he's taking it on because he's a grown man. I don't think they should worry about themselves and worry about their level of trust, but I feel bad for him because, I've run business like this, similar. I mean, it's a little different. And I've also, promoted it. And I know that it's probably extremely painful to him.
Okay. All right. Any other thoughts before we move on to some conference championship talk?
No, that's it. That's pretty much it.
Okay. All right, everybody. There's more. And like I said, if you're watching this live on the replay, I'll throw all the links for the videos and articles, Liss's article that we referenced as well. You can see his Real Man Sports. All right.
I launched a new Twitter account.
That was my next thing.
Oh, okay.
So before we get into that, I was going to say it's on my list here. I'm moving it up. Is that months and months of campaigning to get you back on Twitter regularly have worked. I have finally persuaded Chris Liss. He is back on Twitter, and I think this is the perfect solution. You were a little dubious about posting stuff about political.
No, sports. I was dubious about what happened is
mixed with.
The takes I was holding back were sports takes.
Right. But I was going to say the mix is what you were.
Right. But the thing was, because I feel like it's not really politics. I hate politics. It was like world events takes, things that are going on. Like the fact that none of the people, you guys were like, put the unvaccinated into camp, but nobody was like, hey, how about the people that actually created this virus? What about them? They're going to get in trouble. Nobody seems to care. Oh, how about the people that mandated the shots? Nobody seems to care. So that is really my priority. So that's all the stuff I was posting about. And then every time I'd be like, oh, I like so-and-so against the spread this week, I'd be like, it just sounds ridiculous to be saying that in the middle. I was
going to say, even you'd be, forget about the spread, because that kind of, but you'd be like, I really don't like Tyler Allgier's matchup this week or something. It doesn't work. It does not work.
It doesn't work, And so I was like, all right, so I'd have a sports take and I would censor my sports take, right? Which is sad because I was like, the other one's more important to me. And I don't give a fuck about these like nutless monkeys who were like, oh my God, he's posting this stuff. Can he stop? Like literally, some people were like, oh, great, you opened a sports thing. I told you to stop, just stick to sports. All those people. It's like, dude, I don't care at all what you think. Reality, I just did a podcast on chrisliss.com. Reality is coming for you like gravity, which always wins. Reality always wins. Men cannot have children, okay? Men should not be competing in women's sports just because they identify as something else, okay? Reality always wins. And if you deny reality, you're going to get fucked, okay? You are going to have a hard landing. You are going to be, financially, emotionally, socially, personally broke if you don't get with reality. Reality always wins, okay? Always. And so, I really feel like I don't care at all about these cowards who just went along with their incentives to believe absolute nonsense and think stupid things and just stick together like, oh, we're all in the sports industry. We're all good, team good. We believe what good people believe. I don't care at all. So I was posting that stuff because it was important to me. And again, I was censoring my sports takes, and I was like, wow, I'm censoring my sports takes. I do still like sports. I do want to have an outlet for it. So at Real Man, that's a long-winded way of saying at Real Man Sports.
All right, let me stop there. Let me stop there. So right now, if you're watching this on Twitter, Real Man Sports, just type it in your search and give it a follow. I know Chris Liss won't do it. He won't solicit follows, but I'm telling you, go there and follow, because if you'd followed Chris in the past, he's got a very interesting and unique take on sports, a little comedy added in, some good stuff, and always up for good banter. He's very interactive. So go follow that Twitter account as it's building right now. I'll retweet. It's on my Twitter as well, at Alan Seslowsky. I've retweeted that you posted there.
So it's got 270 followers. 1,000th follower gets free year on Real Man Sports, the paid side, because I do have some paid posts, especially during football season. Millionth follower will get up to 10 grand in sports in memorabilia, up to 10 grand, like you want like some sort of Babe Ruth card or something that's 9 grand, no problem. Millionth follower. And the billionth follower gets lunch with Jeff Erickson. Okay. And I promise if I get to 1 billion followers, I'll arrange it, so.
Hey, but let me tell you about why the 1,000th follower thing is a bad incentive, because you're incentivizing people to wait until other people follow you.
So nobody's taking it seriously anyway. Don't worry. They're not taking this promotion seriously. But I'm serious. Whoever it is, 1,000. Oh no, because like people will follow to get. What you should do is this is what you do. You follow to get the number up, and then at like 994, you unfollow, and then you refollow.
All right, I like it.
Because if you wait too long, then you're just gonna forget about it, and it's not that much. It's just a free year of,
Well, this is what how you do like a Twitter campaign to get people to follow you. What you do is you say, follow, retweet, and the next 200 the people that do it, you'll put them in a lottery and you'll give them a $50 Amazon card or something like that. That's how you get it. It's
such a meager payoff though. I can't do it. You got to get something good like lunch with Jeff Erickson, for the 1 billion followers. So that's the ultimate prize. 1 billion followers. If this account gets 1 billion followers, it'll be a very dangerous account. I promise you that.
All right. Well, we're a half an hour in and the title of the podcast is The Final Four. So I'll have to put some timestamps in as I usually do in order to get this going. So let's talk about some Final Four. First, let's talk about the teams that were eliminated list and what the fantasy outlook is for them moving along. Green Bay Packers, good effort. They lose, right? But San Francisco moves on. I just want to talk about Jordan Love. I'm in a dynasty startup draft right now. He went QB 9 or 10. I have him as QB 7, like ahead of Trevor Lawrence for fantasy football. Are you there? The word is that they're going to give him the big $50 million per payout. Like, have you seen enough from Jordan Love? One, that he should get the rock solid 4 or 5 year contract. And for fantasy football, do you like him as a top 10 quarterback for next year?
Yeah, top 10-ish. I mean, I don't have a strong feeling about Love. He obviously had good numbers. He played especially well down the stretch. He has good receivers. He's got young, good receivers that should get better. Christian Watson could stay healthy. That would be nice. So yeah, he's got a young tight end. Musgrove made some play. I mean, it's a good setup for him. So everything's positive. I mean, quarterbacks are very situationally dependent. Offensive line. You see a lot of fluctuation, but for a guy in his first year as a starter, yeah, I think that top 10 is good.
And you give him the $50 million, because that's what everyone's getting now. They're getting $50 million.
I mean, if Daniel Jones got 40, you can give him 50.
But that's right. But that's a bad contract. We all agreed that.
Yeah, but I'm just saying. Well, I mean, it's easy to say that now. That
even then.
He had a good year in 2022 with nothing around him. Quarterbacks, look at Baker Mayfield, look at Jared Goff. I just think like year to year, these guys change so much. I mean, there's only a couple that really it's every year.
They have the opportunity to get one more free look at Daniel Jones with a franchise tag and just give Barkley whatever. Right. And they went the opposite way.
Yeah. I think you're obviously right now, but I'm just saying that if Jones has a good year this year, it's like, they got their quarterback, he was just bad. So, yeah. I just think what my point is that all of these guys, once the quarterback shows, he's good, like he's a good quarterback, has a good year. It's kind of like everyone thinks, he's a good quarterback now. And then he has a bad year and he's a bad quarterback now. And there's really maybe 10% of the quarterbacks, maybe 20% of the quarterbacks that sort of transcend that year, good year, bad year, when you're talking about Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes. And I mean, look at Deshaun Watson, right? I mean, Deshaun Watson, Russell Wilson, those were elite quarterbacks. Now they're nobodies. It's just, I think that, Jordan Love, probably good, but it's been 1 year and it's very hard to know.
Eyeball test. By the way, in that dynasty startup, I'm in the 3rd round. This dynasty, I had to decide between Deshaun Watson, because you just brought him up, and Jared Goff is my QB2 at Superflex. I'm just curious, who would you take on the clock?
Goff.
See, I went Watson, but I totally I struggled with it.
I think Goff is like floor. I think Goff is like the poor man's Kirk Cousins. He can kind of just the line is good there. His receivers are good. He's got great weapons actually, Goff. And if Jameson Williams ever develops, then he's got some of the best weapons in the league. So I think Goff is in a good floor situation. Deshaun Watson, it's sort of like, who knows? I mean,
he was coming on before he got hurt in November.
I'm sure he was.
Yeah. Oh, a little pun there. Little pun.
Yeah, that's true. as he's wont to do on the massage table.
He was coming on.
Yeah.
Other team that was eliminated, Houston Texans. CJ Stroud is going to be a top 2 or 3 quarterback, depending on if you value pocket passer versus like Jalen Hurts or whatever. So it's interesting. It just off top of head, Stroud top 2 or 3, I'm sure for you as well. It's just that after Josh Allen goes in the second, third round next year, I don't think QB2 will be taken for a couple more rounds. Like, where do you value Stroud in?
I wouldn't take him. I mean, I'm going to wait on QBs like I did. I got Prescott in like the 10th round. I reached for him in like the 10th round this year, and it was like, okay, I got like the QB3, and I had Purdy as my backup, and it was like, this is easy. In my other leagues, I had problems. I had Richardson and Cousins, but it was because they got hurt. Those guys were both fine when they were healthy. So, I feel like I'm not going to reach on a QB. I could see Josh Allen in the second round because he's just such a reliable touchdown scorer. But I mean, I wouldn't take any of these guys in the top 5 rounds probably after Josh Allen's gone.
All right. Well, Nico Collins, I have him as a top 10 dynasty wide receiver for redraft. I think he's going to go in the second or third round. I'm looking at the draft I'm in right now, Liss. I had on that 3-4 turn. The reason I'm picking twice is because it was third round reversal. I was timed to take a receiver, and I was looking at Nico Collins, Jalen Waddle, Rashee Rice, Devontae Smith, DJ Moore. I went with Nico Collins there.
Yeah, I can see it. I mean, all those guys are about equal. I mean, I think there's different, Nico Collins might have like that 150 target, like alpha receiver upside, whereas, Waddle and Smith are sharing targets.
Moore, DJ Moore.
Yeah, and DJ Moore. And what's his name? Rice. Right. Rashee Rice has upside, but the Chiefs are so spread it around and weird. You like, is he really going to be like he's not Tyreek Hill, obviously. He's not that kind of player. Is he really going to get those 150 targets, or is he going to get 120 targets, and the Chiefs just throw it to everybody? So, yeah, I could see it. DJ Moore, just Chicago is just a rough place to play receiver. It's just hard to have dominant numbers there. So I could see it. Yeah, I'd probably take Collins too.
Other 2 teams eliminated with Tampa Bay and Buffalo. Just quickly on Tampa Bay, there's no reason to think Baker won't be back on a reasonable but still deal. He was only making $8 million this year. I bet you he's a 30-35 for 2-year guy coming up. I mean, what else are they going to do? But really the question is Mike Evans going into that age 30-31 season. I mean, he belongs probably in the second or third round, but do you think that next year age will push you off him?
He'll go in the third, I think.
The old Keenan Allen spot.
Look what he did in the playoffs. I mean, he just was like had a monster game, and there's like you look for signs of slowing down, right? You look for like, oh well, he got his 1,100 yards, but it was on lower per play numbers, and that was not the case with Evans all the way through the playoffs. He was better per play numbers than ever. So if there's no sign of decline, you usually take the gamble. If there's a slight decline in the guys that size and that age, you pass. Right. So I think he's like a third rounder.
So remember, going back to last season, Mike Evans wanted the big extension. They wouldn't give it to him. Now he's a free agent. I mean, he's free to go anywhere he wants. Obviously, they could franchise tag him. Doesn't seem like that would be a good move for a veteran like that. Do you think Tampa gives him what he wants, or does he explore the free agent market?
I don't see he gets like a long-term deal because he's old. I mean,
not long-term, but 2 years, big money.
I mean, he should get a lot, for the 1 year. I mean, or 2 years, he should get a lot of money. I don't know what receivers get paid. 20 mil, what do you get?
20 is basically more or less the top of the market at this point. 21, 22. That's what like the Hopkins, like the big contract.
Like he get like 2 for 35 or something, maybe somewhere,
Oh yeah. Okay. Rachaad White, will you take him as a top 7, top 10 running back next year?
Maybe. I don't know. I have to look at it.
Okay.
He's just those usage guys are sometimes a bit like, it's like, they're like those players that like score 100 runs and go 20-20 and 100 RBIs, but they play 162 games, and you're like compilers a bit, All
right. Lightning round on Buffalo. Stephon Diggs. I've seen him go in some of the early NFFC best ball, underdog best ball stuff, like ADP that's being sorted out. I've seen him go in the first 2 rounds. I'm completely out on Stephon Diggs.
He may have just gone off the cliff. This could be this is what I'm talking about, right? Like he's in that 30-31 year, but there's a big decline in his performance and in the second half. And you're like, okay, like maybe it's just a blip, but this is, it's not like Mike Evans who finished strong. So, yeah, I mean, there's a point you take him, but it may be late second or something like that.
Josh Allen has finished as the QB 1 or 2 in I think it's 5 consecutive years now, something like that.
Well, the rushing touchdowns are really good as a floor, and it's hard. It's hard to beat the guy that there is no goal line back ever there in Buffalo. So you're the goal line running back, and you're getting high volume passing. It's tough to beat that.
I would like to see, and also there's been some rumors there because, the blame is being pointed everywhere for the Buffalo Bills loss. Could this be the Bill Belichick spot?
I don't know. To me, it's all just speculation. What possible reason would I have to know? What reason?
Do you think it's a good
reason?
Fit?
I don't know. I just don't know. It's just sort of, it's everything speculation, right? It's going to be Atlanta, Buffalo. It's going to be in,
Well, I like that he's in the AFC East. He gets to still beat up on my Jets. He gets, he's got the ready-made quarterback where he can get the 10 to 12 wins, 13 wins a season and pass the record that he's been chasing in about 2.5 seasons.
Right. He gets he's assigned to just beat Mahomes in the playoffs, basically. That's his assignment. How do we shut down Mahomes on defense in the playoffs? Yeah, I'm sure it's fine. I mean, I don't know. I don't know if Bill Belichick is still useful anymore. I don't know. I don't know any, it's sort of like this stuff is so, it's so speculative. Can Bill Belichick still coach? Is he still a good coach?
Yeah. And then obviously if Bill Belichick does take a job, I think you have to be ready no matter what team you are. Josh McDaniels will probably be the offensive coordinator. I mean, that's how I was thinking about it. Right.
Right. And that doesn't seem that good. I mean, when you had Brady, 18 years into the league, it didn't really matter who the coordinator is, right? It's like Brady's running the team. But you have, and Josh Allen maybe, able to do it himself too now at this point, but that guy's just such an imbecile, Josh McDaniels. It's so obvious. I don't know why. I don't know what why Belichick keeps these guys around. It's like Howard Stern kept these guys around, these total losers that he just liked. And I feel like that's Belichick is doing that with Josh McDaniel.
There you go. I love a Howard Stern reference. That.
And I despise Howard Stern now.
Yeah. Yeah. We've talked about that a couple times. All right. So let's get into it here. Matchups. We'll start with the NFC. 49ers, Detroit Lions. Line is 7 last I looked. Start with the end. Are you taking the number? Are you taking the 7 points? Or do you like San Francisco to win by more than a touchdown?
I made the line 8.5. I see the case for the Lions running the ball and, sort of beating up on them and controlling the game a bit and maybe surprising. And the Niners obviously looked very weak against Green Bay, could easily have lost that game. And the Niners didn't finish especially strong. They got, blown out by the Ravens. And you're sort of like, did they peak in week 10? Now it's another season and they're not that good anymore. But typically I think outdoor golf it's not going to be cold, but it's just going to be sort of a slower track, good defense coming after him. I kind of think the Niners, I probably lay the wood, but I don't think I'm going to bet this game. I don't feel that strong about it.
Teasers are sucker bet. So if you're a sharp and you're listening to this, just ignore this advice or, don't think I'm an idiot, even though I am. I am doing the 7-point teaser here, right? Where I bring it down to 0 and I'm pushing the Chiefs number up to 10.5. And I am laying 140 juice on that, but it's a small, just novelty bet. It's not any real money. It's what I do, a $50 or $80 bet, something like that.
Yeah, I could see it, but, fine. I wouldn't do it. I don't feel I realize this, and it's going to undermine me for the super contest next year. But the reality of betting is either you're one of those number crunching, probabilistic modelers, and you day trade stocks and you bet it. You see edges in all the games every week, and in certain games, and you bet them, and you are constantly betting every different sport and whatever. Or you're a person, those people are going to win money. They have little tiny edges and they pick them up here and there. They shop for the best lines. It's all just little teeny edges. It's super boring. It's a super dull way to live your life, but you can grind out profits if you're good. But then there's the other way, which is you just wait and wait and wait until you see something and you have conviction, and then you put a lot behind it. It's kind of how I feel about Bitcoin. You just wait for the opportunity. You don't every week find a game because you're just going to miss. And all those guys who predicted like the Big Short, all those guys who called the crash, they had conviction and they made a ton of money. And then people are asking them for their advice now, like, oh, what, and they're always getting it wrong. They're totally wrong, those guys. Because it's like you think you can predict now just because you got this big thing right. But it's not on command, right? It's only when it comes to you, when you find conviction in it. And so I just feel like most of these weeks, of course, I want to have a bet. I want action. It's fun. And I may bet $50 just anyway sometimes. But I just I realize I throw out these bets each week, but it's like, I don't really feel it. I'm not feeling either of these games. I really could see both these games going either way with the lines that they have.
Yeah, that's fair. And by the way, you did make an excellent post on that. We were just talking about conviction. That's over. Is it over Real Man Sports or is it over?
I think it's on the chrisliss.com because it was a cryptic Bitcoin post basically. But basically, the idea that the sharps, the probabilistic guys, like they're going to beat you like on the day trading stuff. But I feel like their worldview is a bad trade. Like it's you want to just be right on the really big stuff in life, like make the really, really big bets in life, not just financially. Be correct on those, and don't worry about making a lot of little losses on bullshit, unimportant stuff. Just like really be in touch with yourself when you have conviction and act. And that was the sort of the point. And so like these bets, like I got to feel like that Seahawks Denver Super Bowl was the last time. I felt like this like absolutely overwhelming conviction that like the Seahawks were going to cover easily and maybe blow them out. And of course they won 38-9 against the favored Peyton Manning Broncos that year that Denver set all those records. So just, you got to be patient if you're going to do it this way. And if you're going to try to bet everything, you better be sharp like Rufus Peabody or somebody who really is, getting a small edge, finding the edges and like really grinding those because it's very hard to win betting everything unless you're really doing that diligently.
And by the way, talking about taking away your edge in betting, I actually, if you already know this, just like wave me off, but I learned something new about this. So Hard Rock Bet is legal in Florida where I live now. So you can make legal, wagers on an app only. It's run by the Seminole tribe, whatever, yada, yada, yada. Yeah. But, so, I did a small deposit on there and then didn't think anything about it. I'm up a little bit, but I look on my credit card statement just as I do every month. And I saw, the Hard Rock Bet for the small amount that I put in. And then I saw, separate date, a transaction fee, and then I saw cash advance fee. So, whoa, what's this? Someone's got my credit card. I'm thinking, the worst. Do you know what I'm about to say here?
No, I don't.
Okay. So I Google it. And if you deposit into a legal casino, that it is your credit card with a credit card versus like PayPal.
Oh, it's like you took out an ATM with your credit card and it's like all these
like
fees.
A cash. They treat it as a cash advance.
Yeah.
Which is 29% for cash advance plus a transaction fee.
Dude, we live in Portugal and so we paid off this loan for this house and it's like, oh, and there's $400 more. Why? Oh, there's a stamp tax above this tax. And then there's like a cancellation fee and there's a prepayment fee. And I'm like, these fucks, it's like they're just little weasels stealing from you. Like all these things. It's like, just get the fuck out of my face. I don't want to bet at your stupid sports book. Like all that,
Well, it's the credit. In all fairness, it's the credit card.
But
company.
it's all of it. It's all of it.
Right.
It's just like, dude, this is why Bitcoin can't come soon enough, where it's like permissionless transactions, all these permission gatekeepers. Oh, we got to let this little fee. We got to give that little fee. It's like, it's just such theft. And you're getting taxed. They're printing more money. Your money's being inflated. Your 50 grand you made last year, oh, that's worth 45 grand this year. So they're taking off the top and they're taxing you. And there's a million fees. And if you want to move money overseas, it's just such.
So I pulled the Chris Liss here. I argued with the company claiming, guilty negligence.
Yeah. Right.
And as a good customer to this credit card company, they did wipe the transaction fee.
That's good.
Not the cash advance fee, which again was, listen.
It's just like, you're supposed to read the fine print of every single thing. It's like, do you have time for this? It's like, I was going to bet in Colorado and then I was trying to get DraftKings. So I was in legal states this summer to do, and the compliance, they wanted me to send my driver's license and they took a couple of days at DraftKings. And I just like, you know what? Fuck you. I'm trying to give you my money. It's just like the legal compliance. It was just impossible. Customer service was slow. It was like, dude, look, I'm trying to give you some money and you're just making it impossible. And then I did this overseas book, and they were sketchy, and they're trying to get me to play online blackjack. Like, dude, what kind of fucking degenerate plays online blackjack? Like, it's just like, dude, the whole thing. It's like, can't you just have an honest sports book where it's like, yeah, we take your money, we offer a rake, and it's all up front, and and if you pay by credit card, which gives us a 1% fee, then we add that 1% fee as a charge, because we're paying the fee or whatever. Fine. It's just like, it's all like this sort of little surreptitious theft is what's going on. And it's like rotted throughout the whole system.
Yeah. You said something maybe 7 years ago. You're not even going to remember this, but this is so you. You said that you're just going through life. You said it on Sirius XM radio. You're just going through life and you're walking through the digital world and people are just constantly trying to pickpocket you. Yeah. You said, I'll never forget you saying that. And every time I get feed, I'm like, hey, whose hand was that in my back pocket right there with my 80 cents fee that most people won't complain about, right? So
I'll complain, I'm like, they just deal with it, but it's like, but I just get deterred, I'm like, people are like, oh yeah, you're going to put a bet. And I'm like, where? Like, I got to figure out some sketch overseas sports book with it's all sketch. It's like, even the legit stuff is sketch. You feel sketch giving your driver's license to DraftKings? Like, who the fuck is DraftKings? I mean, how many times has Equifax and Target and everyone been hacked? Like, you're giving your info to all these companies. Like, they don't give a shit about any of this stuff. Like, it's all sketch, and they just can't make it so that it's just like, again, make your rake, make your profit, just do a business. But all the regulatory stuff makes it impossible for them too. And so, this is why we need a system, a parallel system, which is being built in real time. And it's going to be here more quickly than people realize, because it's like the one that we have is just, they know it's failing. And it's just right now, it's just sort of a race to grab everything they possibly can before things go to shit.
Lastly, we're going to cover the Baltimore-Kansas City game. Now, you kind of alluded to a little bit that you don't have a real hard lean. So for anyone looking to make a legal sports bet on this, or even an illegal one, isn't it just take
old school bookies the way,
right? Guy that's what I was thinking.
Those are the guys you can trust.
Right, yeah, the leg breakers, right? The leg breakers.
Those are the guys you can trust, Yep. But so I'll say about this. I'll say the reason this one is tough is the Ravens the best team in the league. The Ravens lost 4 games this year. One was a tank in week 18. They weren't trying. So they lost 3 games. One was week 5 to Pittsburgh. They lost by a touchdown. The other 2 losses were overtime to the Colts by 3 and 2 points to the Browns. Besides that, they destroyed the Browns. They destroyed the Texans twice. They destroyed the Lions. They destroyed the 49ers.
That was the big one.
But they destroyed pretty much every playoff team. They beat the Rams in overtime in a close game. But they destroyed most of the playoff teams they played, absolutely destroyed them. This is like a quiet closet all-time team. This is one of the best. If they beat the Chiefs and Niners, decisively, this will be like a top 10 all-time team in NFL history. And it's a weird team because they've got these elite inside linebackers. And this is all the sports nerds, all the analytics nerds are like, oh, you don't need linebackers. It's edge rushers. And it's, only the passing game matters. But these guys are, Roquan Smith, Patrick Queen, these are good players. And it's just a weird way to build a team, but they have done it. And, so this is why the Ravens may just win by 2 touchdowns. The Chiefs have been, erratic, but the Chiefs defense is actually pretty good. I know they have some injuries now, but their defense is good. And you have Patrick Mahomes, who, is arguably the greatest player of all time. And you have Andy Reid, who knows how to coach. So, you don't want to say the Chiefs can't do it, and they're used to these situations and they're game for a huge game. And so that's why this is obviously the more interesting of the 2 games. And I think that I would not be surprised if the Ravens win by 20 and they're just like, oh yeah, this was the best team. Obviously they killed them. Or they get a close game going. And now you're dealing with pressure down the stretch. Lamar, makes a drive, but leaves too much time on the clock. And now, you're dealing with Patrick Mahomes. So I think this one could go either way. I think the line is just about right. The Ravens are the better team, but this is a game.
There is no worse feeling in sports betting than you're on the other side of Mahomes, the non-Mahomes side, and he has the ball with 2 minutes and 12 seconds left. It's just, you already know you're going to lose.
I mean, it's just, he's maybe the greatest player of all time. Brady was like that. There's a couple guys that you're like, shit, this is bad. You're so pissed when you're like, don't score. You're even willing to risk them losing the game to slow it down, and it's a tough thing, but that's why this is a good game. That this is
So if you were just advising, like someone says, "Hey, I have $100. I want to put it on one side." Is it take the points because it's even, or again? No, you're not. This is not what
even.
You're doing.
It's not even. I mean, the Ravens are the better team, so it should be 3.5 points. It's not.
I saw it go up to 4 at one book. By the way, does that matter?
I mean, if I had to bet, I'd probably lay the wood. To be honest, if I had to bet, I'd lay the wood on both. But I don't. If I do bet, I'll be like $50. But I'm not feeling these like sometimes like tomorrow maybe the lightning bolt will hit me. I'll be like, oh, Ravens are going to kill them. I know it. But but oftentimes I'm like, I don't know. Could go either way.
By the way, is he? So that's going to wrap our football discussion. We're just going to talk some other topics from in here. But real quick, just educate me. Is the Australian Open going on right now?
Yeah.
Okay. What round are they in as of today?
So Coco Gauff just lost in the semis
to
what's her name? Sabalenka, who I wrote about this summer because it was such a sick match.
Yeah.
But Sabalenka beat her. Sabalenka's a beast. Sabalenka's like 6 feet tall with broad shoulders.
Yeah.
Like one of these like Eastern Europeans who's just like, it's Drago. She's Drago. And Coco Gauff is Apollo Creed. And Coco Gauff is 5'9". It's not like she's like
she's a
tiny
dog. Yeah.
Right.
She's just
overmatched. She's not physically like Drago, right? So she played Drago and she beat her in the US Open, like running down every shot, like unbelievable, like running off the court to get these shots.
Wait,
it was like,
when did that match happen? The semi, was it last night?
It was this morning.
Well,
last night US time, this morning Portugal time.
Well, okay.
So basically, like, in the US Open, it was like Michael Chang at the French Open where he's just running down every shot.
Right.
And, so it was incredible. But, I didn't see this match. I woke up and I saw it was over. But she Sabalenka's a beast. But now Djokovic, Djokovic has had to deal with a lot of sinners these last few years, the way they treated him. And the Australian Open semifinals, no exception. He's playing Sinner in the semifinal.
Very good. Very good. And I also liked your post about before the Coco Gauff loss. You said, is this a bigger week for Coco or Jared Goff?
Yeah.
I love that one. That was a good one. See, this is the real man sports stuff that I'm missing, that I've been lobbying for a half a year, that I finally got it back. So
I couldn't do like biomedical authoritarianism. Then which Goff is going to have a better week at this week? And well, already, Coco's lost that because she lost but Djokovic playing Sinner, I think he's kind of dominated him.
Mm-hmm.
And then, but you never know. And then, but Alcaraz lost.
He lost to who?
Yeah, he lost to some dude like Rublev or one of those guys. No, not Rublev, a different one. Anyway, but Medvedev is in the semis, and Medvedev actually almost beat Djokovic in the U.S. Open final. That was a tough match.
That was a good one.
And he's really good on hard court. So that will be, if that's the final, Djokovic-Medvedev, that'll be another rematch in the U.S. Open, and that'd be a good final.
So we'll revisit this when by the way, did you hear that beep? Go on. Is that going over camera?
No,
okay.
No.
It was a beep because I'm in this draft right now and someone just picked. All right. If we'll revisit this in September or August, but I would like, since you're passionate about this stuff and I'm still learning about the US Open in tennis, maybe we do like a video that's like a 7-minute recap, look forward, something 10 minutes or less.
I'm far from a tennis expert. I just
not experts. This is just people that are watching. I don't want tennis experts doing a video. It's like, hey, this is our stupid takes from fans that are just interested in it. Something like that. 7-minute video that you could post to Real Man Sports.
Sure. Well, yeah, I'll do whatever. I did that video, like embarrassingly buying that Survivor ticket, so I can do anything.
No, just something like this, where we're like, hey, this is what's the matchups, this is what we think, and maybe like sports gambling. Is it? I'm
just big on Djokovic because he did not comply,
right?
And then he got cheated out of 2 or 3 Grand Slams. He would have like 30 something now. He got cheated, and then just crushed in 1-3. He was 1 game in 1 set against Alcaraz in Wimbledon away from getting a Grand Slam at age 35, 36.
Yeah.
After being banned. I mean, that's like the sickest thing of all time. He's 1 game away from, I think he lost 7-5 or 7-6 in that 1 set. And that was, for the whole thing, which was just one of the, he's arguably the greatest athlete of all time. I mean, that's how sick it is.
I'm there. Last thing I want to talk about, and you could just push this off to the side or move forward. I saw you had some Twitter engagement with some of your followers that were, giving you, hey, standing ovation for speaking out against, all the stuff that you've talked about on Chris Liss podcast stuff. And then I kind of got whipped in there a little bit as not doing enough. I thought just by having you on, isn't that doing like everything, like more than anyone else is? The only reason I don't really like say anything because I feel like I'm not educated enough to have an opinion on this, but just having you on and letting you know. It's like, hey, I'm obviously rubber stamping what you say. I thought that was going to get cheered. Meanwhile, I got booed.
Yeah, that was a little harsh. That guy.
Do you agree?
No, I agree with you. I don't agree with the guy. I thought that guy was being kind of a douche. It's like you with your 14 followers are going to tell everybody what they have to say and everything else. I mean, I feel like, dude, these videos don't exist if you don't put them up there.
That's
right?
what I was thinking.
I told them that. I'm like, why do you think I have this video? And who's platforming this at all? Nobody is. You think people in the fantasy industry are like, Liss, come on. Nobody invites me on anymore. I don't care. I don't give a fuck. But I mean, they could. I know all of them. They could be like, hey, come on to this podcast. Come on to this, corporate sponsored site because we know each other. Ask about football, and then go off on what you're talking about now in your podcast. They could. Nobody does. Not only does nobody do it, nobody even considers doing that. Nobody even in their wildest dreams does it. So you're giving Alan shit for actually doing it. I mean, dude, come on. People are just crazy though. People they have like a really weird view of the way the world works. Sometimes it's just like a bit naive. It's just like, I don't know, so I'm with you. I'm with you there,
Yeah, the guy who said that, by the way, he was just a passionate Chris Liss fan, and he even said he said some complimentary things to me. Just that he wants everyone to do more, and I get that. And again, for those who are a little bit lost in the sauce here, I was critiqued in a Twitter post for not amplifying Chris Liss's voice enough. But as Chris just told you, if you're listening, is that I'm the guy having him on every week, and gladly. By the way, I think you're doing me the favor. It's a mutual sort of thing, and plus, I value your friendship, but I applaud what you're saying and want other people that are maybe into sports. And we always keep it to the end here, right? So if someone wants to tune out, they can tune out. We don't mix it in with our other stuff. So anyway,
well, I mean, yeah, my point is just, I said it too on the Twitter thread. I didn't want to get you too much trouble and say, well, he, I just was like, no, he does this.
Yeah.
But my point is just sort of like, I don't know. I mean, look, I wish more people were like not head in the sand, and actually like, the same people who are like, well, the unvaccinated should be separated from society. Why? Oh, because they're spreading this disease, and they don't care about the people who created the disease, and they don't make a peep about it, and they're all just driven by their incentives of there's no code, there's no honor, there's no principle at stake. And I wish more people were like that, but at the same time, like the people who weren't like actively part of the problem, I'm not going to like say you need to say this or you need to say that. I'm sure there's a lot of things going on in the world that I don't say anything about, that I have no specific interest in, that, sure, I could probably say something about that too. So it's not about that. Just take care of your own shit. I mean, just honestly, like take care of your own. Obviously, if somebody's like being aggressive toward innocent people, I'm going to say something about them. But if it's just like they're choosing to talk about something else, I mean, worry about your own business. I just think it's a bit ridiculous.
Yep. All right. Well, we'll leave it there. That's a good one. We'll be back next week with another collaboration podcast between Real Man Wood Sports and RotoWire. You could follow
just Real Man Sports. No more Real Man Wood Sports. Real Man Wood still exists. It still exists, by the way.
Did I say Real Man Wood?
Yeah, you did.
Oh, okay. All right.
But Real Man Wood still exists, but it's just jokes. It's just a joke.
Okay, so Real Man Sports. Yeah. Sorry about the Freudian slip.
It's all right. Real Man Wood was the original name,
and I called it Freudian because of wood.
Yeah,
right.
Of course.
Yeah. Of course. All right, and you could follow Chris Liss on X at Real Man Sports. Right? Do I have that right? Or
correct.
Of course, you can follow him
Sports
at Chris_Liss for his takes on society, not politics, but society. Yeah. Is that the right way to say it?
Yeah, on just anything, observations.
And then also there's a new Chris Liss podcast. It's either dropped or it's dropping this week.
It's already out.
Okay, good. And then a couple just RotoWire announcements is that this channel that you're watching the fantasy football on is going to become branded the RotoWire Fantasy Baseball channel starting right after the Super Bowl. And Liss, we're going to be starting from zero a new football channel. I'm excited about that. I did it with basketball and it's blown up. It's got like a few thousand subscribers right away. And social media, as we've talked about in the past, is really getting niched down. So in the past, we've put all our sports on this channel. So after the Super Bowl, be on the lookout for a RotoWire football channel. And this channel will become the 100% baseball fantasy channel. No comment on that?
Good for you. I mean, like, I don't know. I believe you.
You're supposed to, as a co-host, supposed to say, what a great idea.
That's a fantastic idea.
Oh, thank you for saying such. All right, everybody. We'll see you next week on this. Come on, you got to be a good partner, man.
I'm terrible. I'm the worst.
All right, we'll see you next week at the same time, Thursday at 9:30 a.m. if you like the live broadcast, or, of course, anytime on the replay. We'll see you next week.